Good morning. It is January 12th, 2026. It's the second collision coffee talk of 2026. Very excited. Mm, Hope everyone is having a decent Monday so far. I had some fun stuff to talk about. This is actually a fun show for me. And I'm not talking about Tesla. Typically, I get really excited when I get to like dogpile everything I can on Tesla, but there's more to talk about this week than just them, although they are on the list. I'm not gonna lie, right? They're on the list twice. All right. So, good news for all of you that are spending thousands and thousands of dollars every year to get your technicians and employees trained, certified, etc. Get rid of it. Progressive now says that their field adjusters are trained safety inspectors. The person that was at Target last month working the barista counter of the Starbucks is now a safety inspector. So I'm Progressive. You're going to have to share with us how you've managed to do such an amazing feat, but we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the art of the claim. Just some things that are just some nuances and some changes that have happened, sort of like a role reversal. It's like when the kid becomes the parent kind of thing. ABAT, the Autobody Association of Texas, I think you just got ghosted. We'll go over that as well. The stuff adjusters see on TikTok, folks, we got to get this in hand. Unfortunately, every Yahoo with a damn phone in their pocket suddenly thinks they're an auto body superstar, putting posts on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube or whatever, and it's the industry is suffering because you're an idiot. So we're going to talk about that. CCC and Nissan are partnering up. This one ought to scare the bejeebies out of you. And any of you shops that are okay with this, I need you to go ahead and form a line because we're just going to have to get in a fight with each other. This is the definition of antitrust. And if you are a Nissan certified shop and you're still on it after you listen to this broadcast, you deserve to go broke. I don't know what else to tell you. The US wants manual door handles back. I think that's pretty interesting. I'm all for crank windows as well. Let's just bring it all back. We're going to talk about nationwide insurance and an artificial intelligence warning. Mm. And on this one, it's not just about nationwide, although I do enjoy picking on nationwide as well. We'll pick on nationwide when we get there. But anyway, this isn't just about them. This is going to be about all insurance companies and how they're using AI and claims and some things that on the shop side we need to be aware of. And then we'll have a little bit more update on our Tied Tesla. Episode 2 came out this past week. Episode 3 is coming, and episode 3 is where it gets really, really, really juicy. When we start having all the emails from Tesla and we start having all the emails from the insurance company and all of those things. So I'll give everybody an update on those. All right, well, let's dive into the super training that is Progressive. Now, State Farm, I thought it was bad enough when you said that seatbelt testing should be in something that's done by the estimators in an included operation. It basically told me that no one on your side of the fence was aware that seatbelt testing is beyond what we used to. We used to teach seatbelt testing in auto claim school, and just some sort of cursory things that an adjuster could do. That was back when about the only thing special about the seat belts was a pretensioner, right? Now there's just so much more involved. Okay, well now Progressive is telling, and I had this on one instant in another state, and then this happened in a completely different state, and I was like, okay, this isn't a mistake. This is a company initiative. I can have an overzealous adjuster. Those are usually the ones that used to work in a body shop, the ones that like to tell you that well, I was a tech and then I became a whatever. It was great. You were a failed tech and then you went to work for an insurance company. But that's usually why, and I always tell people I didn't like hiring former body shop people in the insurance world because there was a little bit too much of an assumption of what you thought you knew, and your jobs are completely different. What an adjuster does and what a body shop estimator or technician does, those are different jobs. They don't have the same things. But so now apparently Progressive has their field appraisers doing seatbelt safety inspections and not putting that on the estimate. And to prove it, well, they give us a little picture of, well, it buckled. So how do you know the seat belts work? Well, I was able to buckle them. Huh. Progressive, have you lost your mind? Like I can't imagine anyone from a corporate perspective, particularly your legal department. So Progressive Legal, chime in here if you feel like it. wants adjusters out completing safety component inspections and saying yes or no on if they're good to go. Like the belt clicking is not even close to what you're going to need to do to a seatbelt inspection. Then if you read this email, I've included a photo. So the shop wrote for all the seatbelt safety inspections, inspections required after a collision. Progressive adjuster took them off the estimate. Shop wrote back and went, where the hell are all the things I wrote? The adjuster's response was, I've included a photo of the front seat belts, which were functioning properly at the time of my inspection on November 19th. The estimate provided includes a repair, pre and a pro scan in order to find hidden damage. I still can't believe it's 2026 and the level of understanding on both sides of the fence. So shops, you don't go get on your soapbox and go, yeah, see, we told you so. Because I've talked to a lot of stupid estimators and body shops in my days, a lot of dumb technicians too, which we're going to get back later in the show. So ignorance is on both sides of the fence, but I still can't believe it's 2026 and we're at a place where we believe that if something isn't functioning, I'm going to get some sort of code or whatever. There are so many things that can be wrong with a car, and it's the reason why there's the safety inspections. Progressive. If pre-scanning found everything, we wouldn't have to have another separate part of the repair manual that says after a collision, check and physically look at these things. I know your people don't know how to inspect seatbelts. I know it because all you sent for this for your validation was a picture of they click. I can't tell you how many times I used to tell shops we need to check the seatbelts and they go, well, they click, Chris. And I go, holy Jesus. Right? Like there's so much there. The liability here is insane. I really don't believe that corporately Progressive's legal is on board with this. There's no way in hell in court that would go over really well. Can you imagine? I mean, let's be honest. Some of these progressive people out running around the field are on week 4 of the job, with no experience. They were baristas and they were working at grocery stores or whatever before they became an adjuster. They're not trained. They're not qualified. They don't even have iCar. I mean, at least some of the shops have some iCar training and some things to go up. And progressive, you think that's good for your customers. That's really how much you care about them and their safety is to let the kid you hired 4 weeks ago go out and go clicks and unclicks. Yeah, we're good. That's just, I mean, can you imagine what the deposition on that would be? Can you imagine if this car got returned, if this had not been a shop that was willing to go, no, that's not how this is going to go. Quentin, Quentin, the adjuster from Progressive. That's not how this is going to go. What if this customer got back in the car and had a seatbelt failure? You know, we talk about one of the lawsuits that affected a shop over inspections and required after collision was a shop group out of Indianapolis. And it was a seatbelt issue and it was some other things. So what if that had been the same way and this customer gets in the car, gets in another accident and the seatbelts don't work? Progressive, you're liable. You're the one that said this guy put it in writing. We checked it. They're fine. And if you don't get anything on the pre-scan or the post-scan, then we're all good. There's nothing that needs to be done. Um, that's just insane that you have insurers and Progressive isn't alone. State Farm thinks it's something that our estimators are competent enough of doing in the shop and shouldn't be paid extra for. Um, if you get these, you need to start. You need to be more public with them. You need to share them. You need to put them out there. You need to kind of like really make a big deal. On this particular one, the if you look at the OE, what's required for the inspections, obviously there's a lot of them. Old Quentin here can't even answer the basics of seatbelt testing. We do have a video on our YouTube channel, which are the basics, those kind of the general things that I used to do when I was looking at cars. But that was from a claims perspective. That was not necessarily from a diagnostic perspective of a body shop. Like there's things I may do as an estimator just to give myself an idea of if I need to go ahead and put some more stuff on. And then there's some things that my technicians are going to do that are aside from me. But insurers, I think as that side of the fence gets a little bit less trained with less experience, less knowledge, and part of that training and knowledge isn't just on what happens like for collision repair, the nuances of that. It's that they don't have any claims training. So they don't understand that what you just did was assume liability. And then now you've exposed us to X, Y, and Z. They think, well, I buckled and unbuckled the seatbelt. I had an estimator one time, and I was guilty. I don't want to say me. I was guilty one time of going out to a shop and a technician looking at me and saying, "You can't do that. That's not how you can fix a bumper or do whatever." And I was like, "Great, give me your toolbox." And I went in there and did it. And I got back to the claims office, and the claims manager just ripped me a new one up one side and down the other, and was like, you're not a body tech. You don't touch cars. Like that's not your job. Don't ever touch another car ever again because of all of the other things." And I learned my lesson. But yeah, I thought this was interesting. So this is two states now where I've got Progressive in writing saying that their field people are, we're doing the safety checks and components, and that's not why they're on the estimate. So Progressive, if you're listening, you might want to get a hold of your people, because now we're going to ask for that, and we're going to go through that in depositions, and we're going to ask your people how they were trained to do the seatbelt safety inspections. That's Quentin. I would love to, like, I really hope, this will go to this will go to RTA and it'll all get paid. So there won't be, the customer will unfortunately have to spend money to get something that she should have got in the first place, which I believe is bad faith. I believe Quentin's email is all the evidence that I need for that bad faith. Um, and I would love to get, okay, Quentin, tell me, walk me through the seatbelt check safety procedures for Toyota and General Motors and whatever, and tell me how you approach that when you're at the vehicle. Can you imagine? I mean, as a claims manager, I would I would die if I thought one of my old field adjusters was going to have to answer those questions. Like, no. All right. Hey, did Autobody Trade Association or the Autobody Association of Texas, did they get ghosted? This was in a really interesting development that happened last week. So earlier in the I think on Monday, they had sent out a notice and posted it on social media that said, "Hey, everybody, you got to get to the Capitol in Austin. We're going to have a day where body shops get to meet with the Texas insurance commissioner, and you need to come and tell the story about what body shops are dealing with." And I even chimed in on one of the posts and was like, "Hey, it's not about what body shops are dealing with. An insurance commissioner couldn't give two shits less about what a body shop is dealing with because that's not their job, right? It's their job is consumers." So I was like, make sure you pitch your issues from the perspective of the consumer, not from the perspective of a body shop. And then later on in the week, this comes out, and I just think it's interesting, kind of funny, kind of sad. But right at the same time that the insurance commissioner then agrees to meet with the body shops, then and the announcement goes out like the next day, she then comes back and announces she's retiring. So, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, I'll meet with you. Yeah, no problem. Go ahead. Let's pencil that in. We're gonna meet. We'll meet next Tuesday, and then the very next day. Oh yeah, hey, I'm retiring, so I'm out. It looks like Texas is the ABAT is trying to find out whether whoever the governor did appoint. It's kind of a temporary. I think it's through 2027, a temporary insurance commissioner, I think till the next election cycle or whatever it would be. But they're trying to see if they can get it reestablished. I think the only problem with an interim insurance commissioner is, yeah, they don't care. Like, I believe the person that's getting the job is the director of public information. So it's like the PR person who also is a member of the bar, I found out. So it does have a Texas law license. Um, they're not gonna, they have it's a temporary appointment to cover it through to a year until they can get, yeah, they're not gonna care about anything. So that's sad news. I just thought, how isn't that funny? Yeah, no, no, great. Yeah, let's meet. Totally. Can't wait to see you. I'll order in some lunch. We'll have some sandwiches. You guys come on up, and then the next day I quit. So, Texas, I hope you get that sorted out. That is a state. I'm not a fan of associations, but that is a state that's been doing some good things and moving some things along. So hopefully they'll get that rescheduled. Okay, let's talk about the art of the claim because this is coming up a lot. It's kind of that role reversal of like sometimes the kid becomes the parent. I've hit that age in my 50s where you're more involved in taking care of your parents and doing things, and that's kind of a weird role reversal. And then I look at it in claims, there's been sort of a role reversal between adjusters and what their knowledge level and competency and involvement in the claim should be versus where it's at. And because of that, from a shop perspective, you have to be very measured and very intentional in what you say or don't say, or you will cause a customer a whole lot of problems. And so this was a question that came in last week. Um, Obviously, usually Larry and I talk about it all the time. Problems usually come after, we usually get the questions after there's a problem. And that's that critical, the art of critical thinking I've talked about. The number one skill for 2026 is going to be critical thinking. Like you're going to have to think through before you do something the way we've always done it over. And from this particular problem, I can probably name 1,000 examples in my claims career where this exact sort of thing happened, and it was my job to sort of interpret what the shop was telling me. But now in claims, no one does that interpretation anymore. And so body shops, you need to think about it. Now, this isn't legal advice. This isn't claim advice. This is just an interesting example. It was a training moment. So Melanie got an email that says, "Hey, I got a situation I think I need Kristen's advice on. Here we go." It's a first party State Farm claim. It's a 2026 Ford F-350. It's got less than 200 miles on it. Guy gets involved in a front end collision. Um, During the collision, there was sustained damage to the power stealing. That was pretty good, right? Power steering, we'll say system, right? So the power steering is a system, cooling is a system, AC is a system. Like there's all these different systems in a car. So we've had damage, physical damage to the power steering system, and all of the fluids have leaked out. So the customer drives the vehicle home from the accident scene, and along the way, the pump gets burned up, right? So we've got a pump, we're gonna have a gear assembly, we're gonna have all these things. All right, they added all of that on their estimate, approximately $3,500, and State Farm has denied it. They sent in like, okay, here's the policy. We can't see where it says that they don't have to pay for it. Blah blah blah. All right, critical thinking. Um, if I'm going to put something on an estimate, I have to determine some sort of the cause of the loss in a lot of ways, and I've got to think through it because if I just put it on the estimate and then an adjuster calls me and goes, um, "Hey, what's this $3,500 worth of mechanical, like a steering pump and all this other stuff? Like, why is this on the estimate?" And I go, "Oh yeah, he drove that thing home and burned that pump to a crisp." Of course, the insurer is going to go, "Well, that's not covered," and why? So there's not like a specific. So we did get a copy of the policy, and we'll go through that in two different sections of the policy. So I think sometimes when people look at it, I always say you take the policy as a collective. You can't just pick and choose little language here that you want to like pull out. If we look at two places in the policy, so first of all, when we define loss, so a policy pays for a covered loss. That's the principle of insurance. So what makes a loss? So first we have to determine, do we have a loss? A loss is sudden, direct, accidental damage to the insured vehicle or the partial theft or loss or theft of. For a collision, it's got to hit another vehicle. Can't hit another human. Can't hit a deer. Well, technically humans qualify as collision, but deers qualify as comp. Really weird. But it's here's what it is. So did we have sudden accidental direct damage? Yes, we did. We had an accident. Was that collision with another vehicle? Yes. Okay, we have a collision loss. We have that loss covered. Now we have to think about the components that were involved in this collision. What's the cause and effect of it? So now I go to another part of the policy, and what State Farm is going to say is that under exclusions, things that we don't owe for, right? Acts of war, driving it while you're doing the pizza delivery. One of the things is we don't owe any part or equipment of a covered vehicle if that part or equipment A fails or is defective or is damaged as the direct result of wear and tear, freezing, or mechanical, electrical, or electronic breakdown or malfunction of the part of the equipment. So they're going to look at this part of the policy, and for most adjusters, I don't blame the adjuster in State Farm in this case for the denial letter that they sent. Right? You put you put this all on an estimate, and you tell them in a line describing why you put it in there that customer continued to drive vehicle, pump ran out, burned and seized. That sounds like failure. We used to get this all the time. You got to get in a car wreck. You puncture a hole in the radiator. They'd drive home. The car would overheat. The engine would seize up. And I would always have an adjuster come in my office and go, I owe for the collision, but I don't owe for the engine, right? And I go, well, let's think about it. Let's do a critical thinking on this. So the first questions that I ask the shop, and the questions that you always have to ask yourself before you write anything else: when did this part sustain damage and leak? So if I go back and it says that it's a mechanical failure or it's defective, is that what happened to these parts in this system? So with inside this power steering system? And the answer is going to be no. We had a direct, sudden, accidental physical loss to a component of the system that caused collision damage to the system. Now there can be what do you like to call them? Connective or conjunctive things as part of the system. Like, for instance, airbag deploys, right? We've always bought clock springs and all these other little components because hey, they could be damaged. We don't know, but let's go ahead and put them in there. We've always added those little extras. All right, how far was the vehicle driven before you noticed the problem? So we get the customer back on the phone and I go, well, okay, talk me through this. We have the accident, you do the exchange of information, you do all of those things. And your vehicle, obviously, your wheels aren't impinged. It still starts, it still goes into gear, it still drives, nothing's rubbing, nothing's doing whatever. Right? Did you see anything leaking? No, I didn't see anything like there wasn't any like big puddles or anything on there. It's like, okay, do you have any warning lights, anything on that was like telling you not to operate the vehicle? No. I asked the shop. I said, hey, is there no? All right, how far did you drive? He goes, well, I got about 2 or 3 miles down the road and it got really hard to steer. Okay, so that seems very connected. It's not like he drove it for 3, 4, 5 days and like a couple days later is when he noticed the damage. How is there any lights or warnings? He said no. I asked the shop to also confirm with me for the dealer. Is there anything that would have come on? Is there like a check engine light for power steering fluid? Is there anything that should have like suddenly he had a dash light that said, "Hey, pull over," right? We all ignore the check engine lights, right? If the vehicle's running, we're like, we'll get to that later, right? But is there anything that could have signaled the operator that he should have stopped driving it? He did say that as it started to get really hard to steer, it started to make a noise, and that's when he was like, yeah, I'm kind of done. Um, Okay, next question. When you turned in the claim, what did State Farm tell you? Did they tell you to keep driving the car? Did they offer you rental? Did they do any of those things? And he was like, well, they didn't tell me it wasn't safe to drive. They didn't tell me not to drive it. They told me that I just needed to pick a collision center because, I picked the shop. And then did they offer you your rental immediately? No, they said that once I got into the shop, I could get in a rental car. So it wasn't like, hey, don't drive that car. Now, if I go back in my claims days, and we'll think about when you had adjusters and estimators on the phone talking to customers, we would ask you a couple of critical questions and we would go, hey, I don't think this vehicle's safe to drive. I'd like to go ahead and get you in a rental now, and then I'll even offer to tow the vehicle to a shop for you. That level of knowledge is gone, and so is that level of knowledge to think through. So anybody with a historical claim background is not going to instantaneously deny the steering system. We're going to think through what happened. Like, did I did I want the customer to abandon a car at an accident scene with really no indication that the vehicle wasn't drivable? Did I want him to get out of the car and go, "That's it, come tow it," and incur a tow bill, a storage bill? Like, what do I want the customer to do? What are my reasonable expectations? If my reasonable expectations for the customer are for them to, if there is no other reason that says the vehicle is not drivable, I'd like you to drive it. There's some financial reasons for that, right? I don't incur a tow bill. I don't incur storage. I don't incur rental. I don't incur a lot of things. I don't get it both ways. It's one way or the other. I can't punish the customer if it's something that's out of their control. Now, had this been 4 or 5 days later, had it been making a noise for 4 days and he kept driving it until he couldn't drive it anymore, yeah, there's a lot of other things. But when we ask the right questions, it really is a continuous chain of events. It's part of that impact. Sure, had he probably never driven that vehicle away from the accident site, we may have had some minor parts versus a pump and everything, but I'm not going to punish a consumer for that. Now, the shop's going to rewrite this up. We're going to have another conversation with the adjuster and kind of talk through it, but you have to be aware as a shop that we talk about it in psychology. It's called anchoring, right? The first thing you give will be the anchor that somebody holds on to. So if I first present it to you, not thinking about the possible negatives of how that shop presented on the estimate. And the first indication of the adjuster is to deny it. That's the anchor. The anchor is, I don't owe this. This is not our fault. We shouldn't have to pay for this. And now it's going to be extra hard for me to change their mind. And I may not change their mind. This adjuster and State Farm may decide to hold on to this forever and not do it. And in theory, I don't want to say in theory, in reality, as a body shop, that's not really something you should have to think about. The adjuster should have gone through this questioning technique. They should have come up, and we used to call it fine coverage. I remember running into one of my original claims managers like a month ago. And remember, I told you I ran into a claims manager in a parking garage. Um, but but I can remember, you walked in as a new adjuster and they would tell you your job is to find coverage, not you don't try to find ways not to pay a claim. You work your ass off to try to figure out how to pay that claim first. And then if you can't, then it's a denial. But we come to the table with coverage first. That's sort of switched, and I've noticed over the last couple of years, everybody wants to figure out how not to pay it, whether it's some form of comparative negligence, whether it's some sort of denial we don't pay until we decide it's a total, whatever it is. There just seems to be this new way of trying to figure out how not to pay things. And I think for collision repair shops, um, you have to understand claims. You almost have to become the adjuster and you have to sort of coach the adjuster in a lot of ways. We can't cross the line. We can't practice law. We can't, we're not into any of that. But we have to be very conscious to sometimes how we say something or the first time that we present something makes a huge difference on whether it's covered or not. So when you get into these questions or when you get into these situations, ask the questions beforehand so that we're not dealing with it. It's hard to reverse a denial. Once an insurer puts a denial in writing, getting them to sort of backtrack that is way more difficult. It's like you. Once you say no, you don't want to say yes. Like it's harder. If it's a maybe, if I get you a maybe, then it's really easier for me to get you to a yes. But once you say no, just pride at that point, right? Nobody wants to be wrong. I hate to be wrong. It's like I absolutely refuse to be wrong. Like I will. Yeah, I'll get in a fist fight before I'll admit I'm wrong. But it was just another interesting situation. Like every week, I'm just sort of more and more involved in sort of thinking through basics of claims. And it's sad for me that this is something the adjuster should have done. The State Farm adjuster should not have put a customer with a brand new truck with 200 miles on it in this sort of situation. I kind of take it personal. It's that State Farm tattoo I got, right? Like, look, come on now, do your job better. Um, but also, the shop has to present it in the appropriate way. And we have to be really conscious of how we present things on our estimates or in our line notes or whatever. We may only get one bite at the apple. So, critical thinking, think through it, figure out what you think the possible, like if they're going to say no to this, why would they say no to this? And so, we don't lie, we don't make up things. If we don't try to help things get covered that aren't covered. But this is definitely one that should be covered. So this is just we didn't ask the right questions and we all kind of leaped off the
21
what do
Chevy
you
Tahoe. We don't have a fancy frame machine
so
here, which is
all right. Ooh, it's early. Where are we at? Okay. um let's go here. All right, so that's the art of the claim. We gotta think through those questions and get to where we need to be. All right, CCC and Nissan. um I kind of I kind of laughed. I'm not gonna lie. It was maybe 2017, 2018. I can't remember when CCC said they were going to get into the certified repair business with OEs. They got no damn business being there, but I'll be honest. There's a lot of people that tried to get into that business that didn't have any damn business being there. But so I kind of chuckled and thought, there's no way that there's an OE dumb enough to do business with CCC. And damn it, now there's two. Like there's Honda and Nissan. So Nissan just announced that they're going to get away from OEC managing their program and they're going to take it to CCC. So why is this a problem? Well, first of all, this is the funniest damn press release I've ever read. So I don't know what CCC thinks they're going to do to make shops feel like there's more value. Like you're the one screwing over all the shops with all the stuff you're doing with the insurers, and then you're going to come out with a press release that says that by you doing the Nissan certified repair program, you're going to help shops find more value in being a certified shop. How? Like that's impossible. Like, I guess you can put anything in print and people will reprint it and not ask any questions. So here's the problem with it. At this point, you have CCC that has a majority of the insurers on the software and using, and that software is used, the data from it in multiple different ways. So shops, you don't own your own data. You agree that you don't own your own data every time that you sign a CCC use agreement. All of the data and everything that's churning and all these estimates and total loss settlements and all this stuff is just funneled up through to the insurers. So you become a data set. I think the insurers are weak because of it. There used to be a time that the insurers owned their own data and they would generate their own reports and do their own things. Now they're very weak. They don't know their own business and they rely on everybody. We're going to read a nationwide press release here in a moment where they even admit that they don't have any control. They rely on third parties for their claim software and everything. So everybody's extremely dependent, and that makes insurance companies vulnerable. They're probably as vulnerable in a lot of ways as body shops are. But now we have one singular software provider that has a majority of the insurers. It has a majority of the collision centers in the United States, and now they're starting to take on a majority of the OEs. That that's a monopoly, and that's a conflict of interest. Like you can't coach an OE on getting cars repaired properly and all of that when you're also creating an AI for insurers that doesn't estimate cars properly and doesn't have, like it's just it's I think the FTC has to step in. I think we're officially to the point where CCC, you're dangerous. You don't even know you're dangerous. You feel like you're super helpful and you're good for the industry and you're creating all of this. If we add into the fact that you're probably about to become the number one bodily injury software as well, that's settling the injury claims in collision, it's too much of a monopoly. The FTC body shops, you have to say no. Um, if you're a Nissan, you're just going to have to drop your Nissan certification. Like it's sort of like the Aztec thing. The only way that we can, like, the only thing that matters is whether you continue to do business. There's no reason to be Nissan certified. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing like parts restricted. There's nothing. Um, Half the people that own those cars aren't looking. I don't think anybody. I've never done a focus group with anybody that's like, I need a Nissan Super. Now the GTR would be a completely different, like, animal, so to speak. But it's just pointless. But if you stay on it, and they claim that there's 3,000 shops on the Nissan certification program, Nissan, you're you're wanting to tell your shops to work with a software provider that helps insurers write aftermarket and used parts, that comes up with parts programs to find aftermarket and used parts. That What were you thinking? Like, it's just, I mean, I know what you're thinking. All of the OEs for the last like 10 years on every RFP, all they seemed to want was, can you tell me how much OE parts we're selling? I need to know about our OE parts. I need to be able to show that I've affected OE part sales. Like, let's forget about safety and consumer satisfaction and any of that crap. Let's just focus on part sales. Shops, you're going to have to be the one that sends a message to these OEs. To that one particular company shouldn't have all of the industry shoved up in it, and be in control of that data, because none of these other companies, the insurers, the body shops, the OEs, you're not in control of your data. You're waiting on CCC to give you reports back and tell you whether you're good or bad. Um, I think it's antitrust. I just do. If I can't think of I know that the FTC was investigating whether Gerber could buy Joe Hudson, and they just finally closed that. They're going to agree to that purchase. The FTC is investigating another merger that's about to happen in our industry, but I think the FTC, I think the government has to step back in here and go, CCC, you're becoming way too much of a monopoly. You have too many tentacles in too much of this industry, and nobody has control of their own data. They're all really dependent on. Can you imagine if CCC went down one day, like all the servers disappeared, how paralyzed this industry and all of the consumers in the United States would be. That's just my 2 cents. All right. Um, I got more than 2 cents to share on the next one. Um, this may be a nickel. All right. I am Larry and I are both, and I think there's a group of what I would consider industry leaders that are on sort of like with everything, there's this private little chat, text group in the background, and we text stuff back and forth to each other throughout the week. I started seeing about a year and a half ago, I started seeing State Farm in particularly would be listing different videos that were online as evidence. They used blue collar crap. A lot of his videos that are out there are completely in um, in contrast. They are contradictory to the OEM repair procedures. And it doesn't help that that sucker brags that he works at an OE certified collision repair center and puts out vehicles of not fixing cars in the OE certified way. But they had started listing those people as evidence in court cases. Now I got excited. Larry got excited. But we're like, this is great. I can't wait to depose these people. And then now it's just sort of it's gotten out of control. Everybody with a camera on a cell phone wants to be a hero. I've got women that want to be the female collision repair hero that don't technically fix cars right. And I've got equipment providers. Car Aligner has lined up with people and bringing them to SEMA in places, and their videos don't follow OE repair procedures very correctly. And everybody wants to be insta famous. But what you're doing is you are watering the industry and you're making it harder and harder and harder to get paid to fix cars right. And most of it is because you don't know how to fix cars right. And so because these people don't know. So this video popped up. Yes, that's 4x4 post propped up under this new Tahoe. Okay. Yeah. Blocks with chains on the floor and come alongs on a new Tahoe. So let's just watch this one together, shall we?
2021 Chevy Tahoe. We don't have a fancy frame machine here, which is totally fine. It's not needed. But essentially,
totally
we are just
fine?
using these massive wood logs as support to pull the frame back to standard measurements. Everything is measured back to OEM standards before repair begins.
Okay. You don't have a frame machine. So how in the hell are you measuring back to OEM standards for it? But okay, what you need to understand, an adjuster from this industry, like we talked about earlier, somebody that was working at Starbucks last week that's now an adjuster in claims, has no right or wrong, right? They don't understand because they have no training. If they see it and it's got tons of likes, and some of you are in there commenting, yeah, that's what I do when I'm at the shop. Keep doing it, keep repairing, don't be one of these parts changers, whatever. If you're in there adding your comments, you're validating this. And so the adjusters are going, well, this is really how it should be done. I don't need to pay set up and measure and all these things on an estimate. I can just drive a car over a couple of fucking fence posts. Oop, I'm not supposed to say that on Instagram or on YouTube. I can drive the car over a couple of fence posts, put some come-alongs on the ground, tie them off of my two-post lift and yank on it and put a pry bar in there and spread open lots of different gaps and openings. And that gets the frame back to where it is. But what I need you to know, and the reason that we talked about this, when I would imagine most all of you who watch this go, oh my God, to think that there's somebody making a video using post. I still go to this day and I go to body shops and I walk by their frame machine and there's still 4x4 posts laying on the ground. I'm like, I know what you do, sucker. Like I can see those there. With a new Tahoe, and they think that's appropriate. You don't need a frame machine, you don't need any of that. And then I'm trying to settle a claim where an adjuster is like, no, I'm not paying for that. No, I'm not paying for that. You don't need any of that. When I see this video, so you're looking at this car aligner screen with Mr. Car Aligner here and his little stickers. I get as mad at that as probably most of you get at the post. That's an improper measurement. That's not using the car aligner system correctly. And the more videos, like to me, that is as bad as the 4x4 post. And a lot of people go, no, those are completely different. Wrong is wrong. That's just the only way to say it. Wrong is wrong. And there's no, yeah, but I never do it right, Kristen, but at least I don't do it as bad as whatever. Wrong is wrong. And if the more of this that we have, like for there's so much good in the freedom of the internet. Like we always talk about, it used to be really hard to get a book published and you had to be vetted and all of your, and I think that was good because it controlled who the experts were. And then the internet comes along and it's the wild, wild west. Anybody can open up a website or a YouTube channel or whatever and be an expert. I am a beneficiary of that. That's, I did the same thing. I was like, well, high tech toolbox at State Farm's not really taking off. I'm just going to go do my own thing, right? Um, but now I have a whole other level of kind of during COVID, this really ramped up, and everybody's making videos of themselves all day long in a shop doing stuff that they think's impressive. It's impressive to them, but it's improper repair. You're not fixing the car appropriately and accurately. And if you're not like for it, it doesn't matter if you're not going to use. So if we're going to look at that car liner, and I'll go back to it here. When we talk about centering, getting your zero, getting your centering, measuring, and then having your comparative zone, that's 6 to 8 minimum before I even start measuring the damage. If you got people that do 1, 2, 3, 4 and go get done, that's not a proper measurement. That's not like that's a problem. So if you're going to use the system improperly, I don't care that Carliner gave you a system and you didn't pay for it. And even if you did pay for it, you're as bad as a set of tram gauges if you're not going to use it properly. So if you're not going to learn how to use that properly, and if nobody's training people properly, we go behind these distributors all the time. And a shop's like, oh, no, no, we just bought it, just got trained. Larry goes in there, and about 5 minutes later, I see him out in the back of the shop screaming and cussing and throwing things because he's like, these people weren't trained. Like, I don't know who trained them, but they weren't trained. Um, that's what we see. And I just thought this was funny because these both popped up in the same week in my text box with people complaining. And I thought it was a really good thing to show. I mean, for most anybody with sort of the basic level in the industry, we're appalled to think that there's somebody putting a vehicle up on blocks and ripping it with a come along, and then claiming that you don't even have a frame machine, but you measured it back to OEM specs. What the hell, right? That sets us off. But I'm as equally upset when I see, you got a $40,000 measuring system. At least learn how to use it and show people the appropriate way of using it and setting cars up the right way and why it takes so long. When you don't do that and you make stuff like this, then that's why adjusters go, well, I have had hundreds of adjusters in the last year say, well, I went on YouTube and I looked and this is what I found. We were specifically arguing pre-court case on the sectioning of a Honda, and how the quarter it sort of became sacrificial. And State Farm came back with a blue collar crap video where, no, 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 I know the procedure says do this, but don't do this, do it this way, and it's fine. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, right? Um, for those of you techs that are sitting in the stalls complaining that labor times are shrinking, that your paychecks are shrinking, you're not getting paid what you used to get paid before, these people posting all this online stuff are to blame. We made fun of Arthur Terzic or whatever in Russia several years ago, but at least we could argue, hey, he's in Russia. You can't take the way he fixes a car seriously. But when I have body shops within the United States posting this stuff on their TikToks as advertisement for why people should come to them, or I have suppliers such as Carliner bragging and promoting people and saying these people are the industry standard, you're the manufacturer of the equipment. I would think that the people that you're choosing to be your standard are using the things absolutely perfectly. Like there's not any mistakes. Um, there's a good shop somewhere that's paying for that. They're suffering because they're trying to get paid to do things the right way. And somebody's watching this going, you don't have to do all of that. I don't need to pay set up and measure. I don't need to do any of those things. So when you're watching online, and you're be very conscious of who you give your likes and your comments to, and what the potential consequence of what they are videoing. When you've got a guy that's got a quarter all jammed in and he's got 9,000 keys on it and he's going to show how he repairs that quarter, that's not good. That's not a good thing. Be very, very conscious of it. I'm still, so far, every time we get close to getting one of these in court, the case settles. Um, I will, I think for some of you, the YouTube views aren't worth what's going to happen to you in the deposition. And so you have to think about what you're right. I always say there's a reason why you don't see, like, 3M has a beautiful training center and they have some of the best techs I've ever worked, like Ryan and Sean. Those guys are incredible technicians. but you will never see them make a video of them working on a car because there's just too many variables that could go wrong. And they understand the legal ramifications of that. So that we work on samples and test models and whatever. And everybody goes, well, I want to see a real repair. Trust us, those of us in the media, we get it, but there's some consequences for the real repair, and we have to be conscious of what we put out will affect every shop in the United States. And so there's a reason why you don't see iCar do it, and you don't see 3M do it, and you don't see any of those people. So all of you just standing in your stall today with your cell phone going, I'm gonna make a video of me fixing this quarter panel. Um, there's a potential price for that, and it may be your job in the future. That video may cost you your own job as we go forward. So things to keep in mind. All right, so the investigation into door handles and power failures and all of that continues. We have a new bill coming up in front of Congress that would make it a requirement to have manual door handles in all EVs. So I think that's a good change. Where we've had 15 people die in crashes in Tesla alone where they couldn't get the door open. So those are the people that burned to death in the vehicles. So the Safe Exit Act is designed to protect consumers. My only question is, could we go back to crank windows maybe? Some of these windows aren't easy to they're hard to break these days. You almost break your hand. You gotta have something to knock the window out. But I think we've seen some rescuers like trying to break windows and they're throwing everything, they're punching it and punching it and punching it, and those side windows don't break. So it makes me interested to know whether we'll go back to crank windows. Um, I think it's good exercise at least, for cranking those windows up and down. We'll see where that goes. All right, let's talk about nationwide and the danger of AI. So we're going to be dealing with this for the next couple of years. Are going to kind of be critical how we, as body shops, sort of set the tone. I don't expect consumers to really kind of fully understand this and have a process for dealing with it, but I do expect body shops, especially DRPs, you're going to have a way for dealing with this. So, Nationwide announced right at the end of the year that they were going to be spending 100 million on AI to beef up claims efficiency quickly. So that 100 million is going to go to AI research. Their total investment through 2028 is going to be 1.5 billion into AI. And right now, all contact centers for Nationwide have been migrated to the Genesis Cloud. Now, the Genesis Cloud is for AI, so it's like voice recognition, human sort of processing, like that's the AI engine, so to speak. So all of those contact and call centers are already onto that AI cloud. Their VP of claims, his quote, we also have done what I am most proud of actually, our early implementations with generative AI. We call it claims log note summarization. And I want you to talk. So what we know is we now know that all of the call centers are on Genesis Cloud, and all of the call centers are using this generative AI through service. But what does that mean to you? Like, okay, all right. So here's his quote. Generative AI is kind of like what we use ChatGPT for. It can take data, it can read through it, and it can give you a summary really quickly of, well, what does this mean? And so many people like to copy and paste an article and go, give me a summary of it. I do sometimes when there's a really long, like a research paper, and let's say, or it's so what's the right term for it? I'm going to get it wrong, but let's say, sort of like a legal paper. Someone's done this extensive research and there's a big paper on a position. I don't have time to read the 200 pages of it, and some of it's going to go over my head. So I'll throw it into AI and go, hey, give me a summary real quick. Now you do have to have some intelligence to make sure the summary's right, but it's sometimes a good thing. But generative AI. All right. What they're doing now is they want fast interpretation of documents that are coming in and ingesting those documents. Those are your supplements and your photos. Those are documents. So they want a fast way, and it's all going through the AI for everything that you're coming in. So the AI is going to go through it, digest it, and then map it. So in other words, where does it need to go? Some of that AI may say, pay it, although I haven't seen many of those happen. And then some of it may send it to a different place for a supplement review, a change request, or whatever that may be. It's supposed to reduce the manual work of the claims representative. Now, he doesn't necessarily do a bad idea in this, or a bad job in this. He does talk about pairing that artificial intelligence with an intelligent human. Although nationwide, you don't really have any intelligent humans that much left, not because they're bad people, but because you haven't trained them. They don't understand collision damage, and half the time, I don't even think they understand claims anymore. You've got a person with a pulse sitting at a desk, yes, but are they trained enough to know what the AI is doing and whether the AI is right or not? No, I don't think so. All right, so he goes on to say that besides it in doing the ingestion, in other words, taking in all the documents and everything that's submitted and trying to summarize that and giving it to the adjuster or routing it where it needs to go, a total loss department, a bodily injury department, whatever that is. They now are using what they call claims log notes summarization. Since generative AI is really good at summarizing information, I'm gonna agree with him there. We basically created an ongoing engine that says, okay, Guru had a claim, and he had an interaction. We recreate the summary of all of those interactions so that every time a CSR looks up a customer, instantly there is a nice summary that says, this is what's happened in the past, and this is where we're going with that. Okay, he is correct in one thing. The hardest part of not owning your claim. So if we go back to the 90s, when we went to these teams, we hated it. What I loved about owning my own claims was I knew everything that was going on in that claim from cradle to grave. And so there was never a he said, she said moment because I was the only one involved. I was the only one that you were going to get to talk to. When we went to a Teams environment, it's just I answer the phone and I have no idea who I'm talking to until they give me some information about their claim. And then I've got to go figure it out. I've got to go back and look through past log notes to kind of like, okay, where are we at? What was the last thing we told this customer? What is this customer telling me? And then sometimes if an adjuster didn't make a log entry, I was just flying blind. And I hated that. That was the worst part. Um, the only problem with log note summary generative AI is it can only generate over what's in there. So again, if an adjuster never makes a log entry, it's not there. Now, as we read this, it doesn't sound like it's recording these interactions and keeping them. Because I thought, well, this would be great. If it just records the interaction and creates a generative summary and automatically makes the log note, then that would sort of prevent a lot of this stuff that when a shop says, Kristen, I called them, we had a 30-minute conversation about this. I call back a week later and they tell me there's nothing in the file about it. It's like, great, we're going to finally get rid of that. But that's not how it works. So what he comes down here and says later is it says basically when the call is over, there's a lot of follow-up work, right? Like, okay, I finished my phone call. Now I got to make my log notes. Now I may need to go assign like a task, whether that's a field inspection or issue a check or whatever. And I've got to do all that before I can then get on the next call. A call center is designed to get the adjuster, like we always say, like 2 minutes is kind of what they want them on, like a 2 minute. And they go, okay, we have 500 calls coming in every 5 minutes. I need to have 20 people in the call center if they handle blah, blah, blah. That's how you figure out staffing for your call center. So there is a lot of like, after I hang up the phone, I need like sometimes 3, 4, 5 minutes before I can take the next phone call. If I don't, then that's where you have all this stuff that never gets done. It never got assigned for a field inspection, all these things that can go wrong. So I'm thinking, all right, well, if it could start doing all that automatically, that could be helpful. I use an AI, generative AI for my meetings. In fact, it's right here for those of you on the video. So my Plod, right? I record my meetings and my coaching sessions and whatever. And when it's over, it gives me a summary and it gives me a to-do list. And that helps me because if as soon as I hang up the phone, Melanie walks in and says, "Hey, Kristen," I don't lose my train of thought. In the claims office, I would usually finish a phone call and there was usually 2 or 3 people standing at my desk waiting for something. And I'd be like, I'd have to put my hand up and go, don't talk to me until I write all this stuff down. And then, or I'm going to forget it. But he comes down here later and basically says that's not really how it works. What it does is when the call's over is it pre-populates some information, but that adjuster is still going to have to like do some things. So what does that mean for shops? It still means that there's going to be a lot missed. And honestly, the more tools or it's the best way for it, the more shortcuts or crutches you give somebody, the worse things get. They don't get better. For Nationwide, and this isn't just Nationwide, I believe every insurer is at this level of AI involvement in claims and particularly call centers. Those jobs are such rapid turnover that there's so many problems. I know why, if I was still sitting on that side of the fence, I would be working with this AI project as well. Like I would think, okay, the AI is not perfect, but it's sure a hell lot smarter than Steve. So we're in good shape there, right? But so if it pre-populates it, then there still has the adjuster. We're still going to have things get left off, and that means um, if they don't have to do it, they won't. If they think it's a problem, they won't. If it's something to put in the summary or the claims log that's a negative, maybe to them or whatever, they'll leave it out. They won't that mark on their performance review. And then people are just lazy. So they'll go for the like the least amount of whatever. That being said, I have always told you that every time you finish a phone call and every time you have an in-face meeting, you should always follow it with an email. You're going to have to do that, including you DRPs. If you have a phone call, you're going to have to send an email afterwards, especially independents, that says, I called, we talked about this, I said this, you said that, the next steps are this. And you'll need to send that to a generic email, whether that's like, claims at Nationwide or whatever. Every insurer has a generic email. There are ways in which when we talked about how the AI takes this incoming documentation, those are emails as well, and it figures out where to route them. So you get that claim number in that address in that two in the subject line, right? And it should route it right. You're going to have to find ways of putting your own documentation in these adjusters files. Because if we get to a point, and I've had several where an attorney will call and hire and say, hey, I just executed discovery. We actually had a Nationwide discovery. No, I'm sorry, it was USAA discovery recently. And there was so many gaps in the claim file compared to what the shop's documentation said. And then I had to explain to the shop, this is really a he said, she said. Like, I'm glad you made a log note, but I can't really prove that any of that happened. I mean, there's nothing in the USAA file that says it happened, and you writing it down doesn't mean it's true. So there's not like a Perry Mason moment where we pull our phone records and go, we can prove at 2 o'clock on Thursday you called the claim center and had a 20-minute conversation. Like that's just kind of not how it works. Um, so you're going to have to look for ways to insert yourself in the insurance company's file. And the way you do that is through email. You can do registered mail. There's still a viable market for good old US Postal Service registered mail. But sometimes it really is just as simple as a summary email. Thanks for calling today. Great conversation. We discussed this. You said this. I said this. Our next steps were determined to be this. And then you carbon copy the customer on it so they're in the boat as well. And then if we ever had this where this generative AI, let's say you call in and an adjuster goes, well, I've looked at the last entries and this is where we are. And you go, no. And they go, well, that's all I have. Go, well, on the 5th, I sent an email. I sent it to this address. It should have been added in the file. I would hope that log notes are getting generated off the email, but I have no way of seeing any of this. Like I hadn't seen the claim system. I can tell you that there's no way an insurer is ever going to let auto population happen, because of the legal potential implications of that. So there is still probably like a filter there, and you're going to have some way of going, that's not exactly what happened the last time. And because of that, I sent this email. And if you'll pull that email, you will see where I summarized what happened, and then I carbon copied the customer and I sent it to you. You're That's just part of the job now. It doesn't take very long to do it. They're very simple emails. Every insurer has generic email addresses. You just need to make a list of them. And then sometimes the customer needs to send them, and do the same thing. Sometimes I've had where I do them, and then the customer and I have had a conversation, and I tell the customer, okay, as soon as you get it, you forward it to the email address. That way we know it goes in twice. And like it's their job to forward everything on as well. So we're all going to be, I think, for our side of the fence, we're all going to be basically just dealing with AI, and we're going to have to find a way to sort of think like AI and figure out how to affect the data, because AI is only as good as the data it it searches. It can only come up with a suggestion based on what's there. It's not reading your notes. It's only reading what the adjusters in the past have put in. Um, and then that's going to affect our futures, or really like our maybe our financial futures. Is that the best way to put it? So just think about, how would you talk to a computer when that phone call's over and the voice is ended? You now have to have a conversation with a computer. How would you have it, and what would you do? And that's really where the email comes in, and making sure that you're not lost in all of this as it moves forward. Not, I agree. I had a conversation with a friend of mine's claims director, and they're like, the computer cannot be dumber than our people. And I'm like, full on. Yeah. I mean, like, you have to have 2 days of training now to teach people how to use a ladder so that they can climb up on a roof. Like, 2 days of just operating a ladder. I fully understand that your claims force may not be as intelligent as they were 20 years ago. But that's not my problem. That's yours. Okay, episode 3 of the Zip Tied Tesla will be out January 29th. Mark your calendars. This one's going to be a good one. The insurer makes some colossal mistakes, and we're going to talk about them in episode 3. One really huge legal mistake that it applies to everybody that is on a DRP program. And you're going to want to listen to this insurer, the way that they talk about their DRP and what the potential consequences of that were, in the email. This claim did go into a DMV complaint in the state of New York. And so everything that we're going to be showing you in the next episode, and really everything that we've showed you in episode 1 or 2, are from the official Freedom of Information Act. So we requested it. We requested all the information from the state of New York, and there was 209 pages of documentation that was sent in for this, because we wanted to make sure that everything we were showing was public information, so anybody can get this. But episode 3 is very, very good. I already have a bunch of attorneys that have asked for copies of everything, and I'm like, sure, here you go. Very, very, very good one. So make sure that you catch the episode 3 of the Zip Tied Tesla. If you have not listened to episode 1 and 2 of the podcast on the Zip Tied Tesla, they're out there on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon podcasts. There's multiple different ways you can listen, you can watch, you can do whatever. If you want to see the documents, see the photos, then by all means watch the video version. If you just want to listen to the story, and me occasionally going demental, I just I lose my mind a couple of times during episode 1 and 2, and just I still can't believe that this happened to this customer, and I still can't believe that Tesla was okay with it. So, there's that. All right. Well, everybody have a fantastic and wonderful week. This is going to be a crazy week for me. I am moving my kid to college. So last kid in the house, and I'm going to take him to college this week and drop him off. So packing, and I'm very regimented in that, and he's not. So that's we're going to be fighting and arguing. It's going to be a great week. So if you need calm advice, this is probably not the week to call me. If you want angry, let's get in a fight, Kristen, this will probably be the week for you to call me. So everybody have a fantastic week, and we will see you next week. There is a pause, I forgot. So because I'm moving him to college, and then we have the holiday on Monday, there will not be an episode next week. I'm going to take a small break. And then we'll be back. So no episode next Monday while I get the kid to school and get him checked in, and I'm going to hang around for a couple days just to see what comes up with the dorm, and do I need to get anything, fix anything, buy anything, and did we get all our books and all of that? And then I will come back home and leave him there so somebody else can pay his grocery bill for a while. Everybody have a great week, and I will see you guys later. Bye.